Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. This is part 6 of the DIY Dollar Tree Farmhouse tips and dupes. I found this at Pier 1. It's a little larger than the piece that we're going to be doing today, but at a sale price of $30. No, it was originally $40 and it's on sale for $25 or something. I figured we could do it on the cheap. So we're going to use the chalkboard, the famous pumpkin chalkboard. Now we're going to paint it white using craft paint from Walmart. This is apple barrel paint. You can get white craft paint anywhere. We're also going to use a little of the black or a giant Sharpie marker. And that's it. The first thing I want to let you guys know is that Emily from Mama from Scratch made something very similar on her channel, so I will link that in the description box down below. She made hers look like a wood pumpkin as opposed to like paneling, or maybe both. Actually, she did both. She painted it like a pumpkin and then added stripes like paneling. But when I saw this at Pier 1, I was like, well, we could totally just redo that, almost exactly identical. But a little easy technique I'll show you how to use. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take off the jute hanger, and we're going to reuse it. So we're only going to unknot one side and pull it through. And then the next thing we're going to do is try to tackle this label. Now there's lots of ways to get labels off, guys. A heat gun, a hair dryer, you could wet it. All of these things will work. I'm just going to use the old-fashioned patience method. I'm going to ask you guys to have patience with me as well. Now that leaf, I spun around because we're just going to use the back as opposed to painting over the chalkboard. We're just going to paint on the back. I figured it would be much easier, take much less coats. So the leaf we just spun around. Now the inspiration piece had the leaf on the right hand side, and if you're that much of a stickler for accuracy, you can always paint on the front of the paint over the chalkboard. You might just use a couple coats. Now because we want this tutorial is not just a dupe. This is the farmhouse effect. So this is how you can get shiplap / barn board / whitewash paneling technique when you don't have shiplap or barn boards or paneling. I'm showing you how we're going to do that now. And one of the keys is the brush strokes. So the brush strokes that I'm doing are all going to be as straight up and down as possible. I'm trying not to have any curves. Then I'm taking a popsicle stick while the paint is still wet, and I'm trying to make the straightest line that I can, gouging out the paint. The paint isn't a very thick line, but it's enough to scrape off and give a little tiny bit of dimension, enough to fool the eye. And because the popsicle stick is round, it kind of gives like, it'll scrape out a little bit more paint in the very center, so it gives it a little bit more depth. I don't know how it works or why it works, but it works. All right, and you want to make sure you wipe off the paint off the popsicle stick before you go to your next stripe. You can also hold it sideways and scrape it out. That's what I was just showing you there. Now, if you have trouble doing a straight line, that's not a big deal. I'm going to show you here with a ruler in a second. But I wanted to show you that you have your paintbrushes still wet. So if you overdo it, like I did the very first line, I did like too many lines, or I did it a little crooked, you can go back with your paintbrush, with a straight edge of your paintbrush, and you can go ahead and you can make it straight. So now I've just laid down a ruler, and I am rubbing the popsicle stick along the edge of the ruler just to get a straight line. The ruler is taking some of the paint off. It actually looked really good, except when you looked close enough, you can tell that it was ruler lines that was actually taking the paint off. And the paint coming off didn't look terrible, but the paint came off in little dashes that look like ruler marks. So it's not a big deal. I just went back over, like I said a few minutes ago, with the wet paintbrush, the straight edge, and I filled in the areas that I didn't want to show. All right. Now, if this was weathered board, that would look like a great effect. You could just take like your cutting mat or something, or piece of paper, and just lay it down and take some of the paint off immediately. But I was just trying to show you how to get the shiplap lines is basically what I was trying to do. Now the inspiration piece had those two lines that were relatively close together, and that's what I tried to mimic there. But if you were just making shiplap, it wouldn't really be a skinny piece like that between your boards. All right? And that is that. I put a base coat on the leaf of white, but the leaf is going to end up being gray. The inspiration piece, I believe it was brown. It looks to me, it's hard to really tell, but it looks to me it's almost like that oil rubbed bronze, that antique-y brown look, rusty looking brown. But I'm going to go ahead and do ones that match my house with the gray tones, okay? Now, as far as the writing is concerned, I really wanted to originally do this tutorial to teach you guys to actually print your inspiration piece and to copy it with the graphite rub technique, where you basically take the side of a pencil and you add a layer of graphite to the back of what you're printing and transfer it that way. But then I just decided to, what the heck, just go for it and hand paint it. Now, that being said, I never looked at the inspiration piece while I was painting this. So other than the fact that it said give thanks, I had no idea what font it was in, whether they were started with capital letters or lowercase letters, or any of those things. So when we're going to get into it, I'm just using the smallest paintbrush from the set from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to go ahead and hand script it. Nothing fancy, nothing special. So you can see I'm mostly just going very quickly, and then I'm going to go back over and fill in and create the font that I want a little bit better. But just as far as the spacing and stuff is concerned, you may have to write it out in pencil. Pencil does erase from the paint. Just make sure that your paint is cured really well, 24 hours, I would suggest. And I knew that this was going to have the vine leaves on both sides of the give thanks and a little scroll on the bottom. And that's really all that I knew going into the tutorial. My inspiration piece was actually on my phone while I was filming, so I couldn't even refer to it. I mean, I could have. Yeah, there's a way to do it, but I just did it. So I wanted to really, like I told you guys, this was about making the paneling technique simple and easy, with scratching the paint and with using Dollar Tree products. It's the farmhouse look. So again, this is how I'm making it personal. My inspiration piece, I'm not doing 100% copy, but I'm getting the inspiration from it as well. Okay? So I am trying to go with a little bit of a script here, with a little bit of the calligraphy sort of look that is very popular in the fontage this past couple of years. And I'm just going to go over and do, repair any of my imperfections or, those things. I sometimes make, like, what am I doing here kind of mistakes, but it's what makes it, again, handmade, personalized, gives that farmhouse country look. I sound like a broken record, and I don't mean to, but I just really want to emphasize it to you guys. So many of you come up to me, or not come up to me, but say in the comments, oh, your handwriting, oh, your practice, like you're so good at this, you're so good at this. Well, I wanted to tell you that what's hard about being a quote-unquote artist while you're trying to do something that's farmhouse is it's hard to not want it to be perfect. Like, you want to make it look perfect, but that's not the farmhouse style. That's why this farmhouse look is so great for beginners, because you can be perfectly imperfect. In fact, when it's imperfect, it is perfect, is when it comes to doing all of these great projects. Okay? And now I'm just going back, the same brush. I've rolled the paintbrush. I don't know if you get to see me dip it in the paint, but I like to roll the paintbrush in the paint, and what it does is it brings the paintbrush to a point when I'm doing the real fine work, and then I flat the paintbrush flat when I want to do like a wide line. Okay? And that is the words. Now I'm just drawing an arch, and again these leaves, just like when we did it on the DIY a couple of days ago, on the shiplap a couple of days ago, it doesn't have to be perfect. Make an arch line, make a bent, if you have trouble drawing an arch line, then wherever you bumped your arch, put a leaf there. And these leaves were just making holes. The inspiration picture actually had the leaves coming off next to each other. So it had a head leaf that was pointing in the same direction as the vine, and then 2 leaves sprouting out from each section, each point it was, okay? If that makes any sense. And then try to just do a mirror image on the other side. But again, doesn't have to be perfect. And as far as the scroll on the bottom is concerned, I picked a totally different scroll. And their scroll actually would have been easier because it's sort of like a script L. But I didn't do that. I, of course, did my own thing. Now, the last piece to this, I rushed because I didn't... and I said to myself, Jerry, don't do it, but I ended up doing it anyway. The inspiration piece has sort of a gray, weathered look around the outside. So what I've done is I've actually taken the wet napkin that I used to clean the paint off the paintbrush, and I used that as like rub, like we did with the stain from the framed art yesterday or the day before yesterday. You know which one I'm talking about. The Bless This Nest art. When you go to do like staining with whitewash. And we just used it just to rub around the edges. And what I did was I jumped the gun, and I actually accidentally, my swirl wasn't dry. And I knew my swirl wasn't dry. That's why I was just going to do the sides, but then I messed up. But I just want to show you, if you mess up, it's okay. I took the paintbrush back out, I added some white, took out some gray, added some white, took out some gray, until I fixed it up. Okay? And then that's it. You can go back and do as much gray as you like, as much of that weathered edges as you like, as much as you don't. And that's okay too. Now, the inspiration piece did have more of a pumpkin shape on the bottom, so you could mimic that with shadows if you want to. But I just went ahead and I just made my little swirls and made my little shading, and that was it. Okay? So it's easy to fix up, as you can see. There's just a tiny bit of paint on the brush, so it's going very gently. Don't want to put too much white back on it. Then you'll have to start all over again with your stripes and everything. All right. And that's it. So, like I said, it is not an identical to the inspiration piece. The lettering is very different, but it's very me. As my friends will tell you. My sister Jane can always spot my handwriting. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments down below. Give this video a thumbs up if you like this series. If you have anybody who'd like to see, share with friends and family. And if you haven't yet, click subscribe. When you do, a little bell will pop up. When you ring that bell, YouTube will let you know whenever I upload a new video. And as always, take care. God bless. See you next time. Bye.